Dami, hello and welcome to ESCXTRA YouTube.
Hello,
Hello.
hello, Matt. Hello, everyone.
Now, I'm going to start with a very important question, and that is, how are you?
I am okay. I can't complain. I think being in isolation, you go through phases where you're like, oh, this is fine. This is awesome. Like you can, not awesome, but you have to be positive and make the most out of it and be grateful. So you go through that positive period, and then after a little while, I was like, oh, this is too hard. This is boring. But you just go a little bit mental, and then you go back to being, you know, happy again. So yeah, I've had those ups and downs, but yeah, I've been doing lots of, watching different Eurovision content and all the different concerts online and sending my videos and all that. So that's been keeping me busy.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to do what you've got to do to get through it, really, haven't you? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some questions about your past a little bit. So you've been classically trained, you've studied your art, and so I want to ask, what artists and musicians influenced you growing up?
Um, mine's a really weird mix of everything because I was classically trained on the piano. So I've been a pianist all my life, and that's what I thought I was going to be, a concert pianist. But I didn't really love classical music, to be honest. I just did it because I was like, that's what I was good at. I loved listening to K-pop because I'm from Korea originally. Um, and then when I came to Australia, uh, I started to pick up what other friends were listening to, and they were listening to the Spice Girls. So I was like, oh, okay, this is different. And then I got really obsessed with Mariah Carey. She was the first like real like diva with the big voice and all the runs. Like it was so really cool and so different. So I used to try and imitate all the different, runs and her vocal gymnastics or whatever. Yeah, and then later on, I studied a bit of jazz. I think jazz sort of gave me a good foundation into singing and improvising and kind of coming out of my shell, which is like the classically trained mind is all like you have to have everything perfect before you can show anybody, whereas jazz was like you just let go and see what happens, and that was terrifying for me. So that was good training. And then yeah, I obviously I did X Factor, and then I got thrown into the world of pop. So all sorts of different stuff going on.
Yeah, so about X Factor. Now, I don't think there's ever been an X Factor contestant that has been really put through their paces like you were. It did seem like every week you were doing a new genre, you were out of your comfort zone. It's like Danny Minogue was your mentor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like every week she was throwing down the gauntlet. So it's like you really earned that win, I think, on X Factor. So tell me a bit about that experience.
Yeah, well, it was, I mean, that was 2013, so I have to really look back. But, it was a crazy, crazy ride because I guess I'd done music all my life, but I've never really was exposed to a lot of television and let alone being on a television show. I wasn't even used to watching that much on TV, to be honest. And uh, the whole experience, I guess I learned so much about performing, about what people actually like listening from me. That's when I got to really do the big numbers with the big voices, big voice going on. Whereas before X Factor, I didn't want to push myself that far. I kind of kept it hidden, whereas on X Factor I was like, okay, that's what people really connect to when I just belt things out. And yeah, so um it helped me really, yeah, expand and grow and experiment to see where I fit in musically. And I think I'm still kind of discovering that. Like every artist has to continue to grow and whatever, but X Factor was a big push for me.
Yeah, and I suppose when you look back at those older videos of you on stage, what would you say to younger Dami as advice?
Uh, uh, I guess, you know, I guess I'd say just try and enjoy every experience, because like for me, um, when I was on X Factor, when I got to experience really cool things like touring, and when I'm, you know, doing Eurovision and all different experiences overseas, sometimes I was so busy on doing well, and you know, I'm super competitive, and I always like, I want to not regret anything, so I'm just like giving everything and so focused, and sometimes I forget to actually enjoy the process. So nowadays I try and do that a little more, you know, like you got to live now, because otherwise you're always thinking about your past or your future, you're never in the present. So you've got to focus on today.
Yes, good advice for yourself. And so we'll come on to Eurovision, obviously. But I see in your background there you've got lots of instruments going on. So I want to ask a little bit about how you compose music, and if there is some kind of process or way that you work.
um so normally I play the piano. Piano is my main instrument, so I just kind of feel out some different chords, different moods, and then uh, sometimes I have like a line that comes up, and then I'll just explore that. Uh, Other times I have this like big urge when I'm like doing something else, like when I'm walking or running or doing the laundry, I'd be like, oh, I really want to talk about this, and then I go and like do it really quickly. But every time it's really different. But to be honest, I honestly don't know how it happens. Hey, because it just sometimes it you think it's going to be amazing, and then nothing comes out of it. Sometimes random ideas come and it becomes a great song that I'm super happy with. So I think, to me, songwriting is such a mystery, and I still don't know when I'm going to write another song that I'm super happy with until it actually happens.
Mm. And so on to Eurovision. How did that come about? How did that, as a project, how did you get on board with Eurovision?
So I was I got a call from my manager at the time. He was like, look, I don't know if you would be open to it. It's a really great experience, and you've got Eurovision. So basically, the SBS, the broadcaster, was selecting somebody to go, and somehow through my label, it had come to me. And I knew, you know, it was a long story before then. I think they went to other people as well, and then somehow they ended up with me because of different circumstances. But yeah, when I knew I got the gig, there was no hesitation. It wasn't like, oh, I don't know, as if anyone would say no to Eurovision. I was like, oh my gosh, I was just like, I was shaking. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, I couldn't believe it. So
And
yeah.
did that come about before the song, or did you say, right, we've got Eurovision in the bag, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah, no, I didn't have a song. So we're like, okay, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And yeah, that's when we started to look for the right song. And the DNA boys, Dave and Anthony, I'd worked with them before, and they got straight into work. And that's how we found the song "Sound of Silence."
Great song. So, Guy Sebastian was the first Australian entry, so to speak, as Australia.
Mm-hmm.
But you were the first that actually had to qualify for a semi-final. Um,
Yeah.
and I suppose at that time, you know, Australia was still very new to Eurovision as a nation participating. So, did you feel any additional pressure because of this overriding question of whether Australia should be there and things like that. Did you feel that at all?
I did. I definitely felt the pressure. And yeah, when I found out that I had to qualify, go through the semi-final, I was like, well, what happens if I don't get through? Like, all my team, the people that fly all the way over to Sweden, there was like a team of, I don't know, like 20 people, who knows. And it's a long flight, you have to understand, this is like, it takes more than 24 hours for us Aussies to get to Europe, anywhere in the world, really. And I'm like, do we just come home? Like, what happens? Because we booked our flights until the end of the grand final, and I felt the pressure, like, ugh. And someone did tell me, like, no, we'll stay. We might as well like enjoy it until the end, even if you're not through. I was like, okay, well, I really hope we're not all just sitting around. I hope that everybody still has a job to do. And yeah, like I felt like I was carrying all these people, all my team of people with me, and I just, I just wanted to do really, really well.
Yeah. And of course you did. Second place is, in a sea of, 20 odd people, or, 40 odd countries in total. Second place, is an incredible sort of place to come, but sometimes circumstance, it did feel like you were very close to winning, right? Especially after the first set of votes came in. And so talk me a bit about how you felt at that time, when you second, when you were very close to first, and then maybe how you feel about that now that time has passed.
Yeah, look, I actually watched the replay of the whole 2016 Eurovision. It was on TV the other day because it's Eurovision week, and yeah, when the results were coming in, it was really crazy. We were just at the top, and it brought me back all the memories. Like, I have really bad eyesight, so I couldn't really see the scores at the time. So I was sort of like talking to, Paul next to me, like, what's happening? Like, are we doing well? Oh, we're doing well. Ooh. And yeah, it felt like, oh my gosh, like we could actually win this. That was really crazy. And the people around me started to freak out because they hadn't actually prepared for that situation. If we had won, they had to do things, but they didn't know what to do. Like, they hadn't really prepared for it. So all that was going on, and then in the end, with the public vote, we dropped down to second. And I think at the time I was disappointed because we were staying at the top for so long, and it just, in the last second, it just went bloop. So it was a bit of a shock, such a whirlwind. But after that and until now, I feel I'm so happy. It's still such a great achievement for me, and the best score for Australia. The performance, the whole staging, costume, music, the cameras, everything worked out so well, and we did the best, and we got such a great reaction. So to me, I really don't have any regrets. I feel like that was the best that we could have done with every resource we had. So honestly, I still look back with such fond memories.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, so many people watch Eurovision, and obviously the fans are it's a real fandom. When you're on stage, actually, do you see all the people, or you in the zone and you can't really see? Because part of your performance of Sound and Silence, you got off the plinth, the box, and then you came forward to finish on the big note, but everybody's right there, right? Can you see that?
Yep. Oh my gosh. I not only saw them, before I saw them, I heard it. Even before I entered the stage and I was being put on that big box, I could hear the roar and the screams, and I had goosebumps all over my body. It was the best thing I've ever experienced. I mean, honestly, I think like Eurovision crowd is just next level. Like I can try and explain it to people, but no one gets it until you've experienced it yourself, right? Like when you're there, it's just the level of enthusiasm and the love in that room is just so like spine tingling. And I knew I was going to do a good performance because the audience kind of did that for me, and the energy was, my energy lifted because of them. So like, yeah, I can't explain how great that felt for me.
Yeah, I suppose there's lots of different people in the audience from different countries, so it's not just Aussies supporting their entry, it's across the board. So
Everywhere, yeah, and you see all sorts of flags everywhere, and everyone's like, just yeah, but everyone's really united, and they just get excited because of the music, not necessarily because of which country you're from. So that's so great.
yeah, it's why we love Eurovision. So I always ask this with any interview I do with a Eurovision artist. I always ask about them coming back to Eurovision. Now, obviously, with you, Australia Decides a few months ago, you announced on stage that you're going to throw your hat into the ring to come back next year. Now, obviously, the virus hit and situations changed, and SBS have asked Montaigne, this year's entry, to come back next year. So it begs the question, I've got two questions. One is, are you still wanting to try to come back to Eurovision, maybe in the year after, so 2022? And did you have a song ready to go, or were you gonna wait and see what happened in the next year, songwriting wise?
Well, good question. I was going to go next year, and it was all very exciting, and I did start to think about the song I'm going to sing next year. Yeah, and now that's the plans changed. So Montaigne is going, which I think is, you know, still that's only fair, right? I'm happy that she gets to experience it. But for me, I'm not sure what will happen by the time it gets to 2022. It's just so far away. I mean, that's just like another lifetime to me. So I think I'll have to, yeah, reevaluate how I feel next year or the year after, and just see what happens, be flexible. And yeah, I sort of had this song in mind, and I'm actually working on this song that was meant to be for Eurovision with the girl that's written it originally, and we're tweaking it so that it can be even more suitable for me. And I think I'm going to release it whether it's for Eurovision or not. I can't wait for 2 years to release this song. So I think, fingers crossed, if everything goes well, I'm going to release this song anyway, just as a single or part of my next album.
Yeah, it's a shame in one hand, but obviously, I think you're right. And I think you posted on some social media about how you were congratulating Montaigne and you're happy for her. So I think you're right. I think it's the right thing to do, bless her, so she gets that experience, like you say. So do you think
Yeah.
it was a Eurovision song? So when you said you had a song in mind, was it written with the view that, oh, this is a Eurovision song? Or was it, no, this is just a good song that we like?
It was just a good song. It wasn't particularly for Eurovision, but it would have been a good Eurovision song for me. It was definitely a strong option, and you know, yeah, it would have been a really, really exciting song for Eurovision. But you know, it's good. I'll still perform it like it's Eurovision.
Talking of Montaigne, what do you think of her entry this year that she would have taken to Rotterdam?
I actually really, really loved the song, even when I first heard it. And then when I saw the performance, I was like, yep, she's definitely going to be representing us. I really knew, and I wanted her to be the one to represent us this year. Yeah, I think she would have done really well, just because she's very authentic to herself, in the way that she's written the song, and her staging, and the way she does her thing, like her movement, like it's very authentic. She's not trying to be Eurovision, like what I think that's always the strongest, the best way to do it. Not trying to write a Eurovision song, but rather than that, just like amplifying what you're good at and who you are as an artist, and just putting that on steroids. And I think she kind of did that.
Yeah, and I think as a national final, Australia decides they're very careful. I mean, Paul Clark, isn't it, that runs it? I think he's very careful about how it seems like it's a curated set of artists, and they're all very different. In Australia, you've got Triple J, which is kind of quite young and quite cool artists, and to get some of those artists, it was quite interesting. And I think Montaigne was one of those. So there's a thought process going on there, like you said, authenticity.
Yeah. Definitely was a really interesting mix of artists. Yeah, like some Triple J and lesser known people with like really quirky things going on, and then other people who are more well known with big voices. And yeah, there was just a real good mix of different people. So like it could have really gone, anyway, like different ways. But yeah, so there were obviously other strong entries as well. Like I thought Casey Donovan did really well, like with the big voice and a really emotional ballad. But yeah, as you said, like it's like how authentic you are, and that sets you apart, I guess.
And then, so we've spoken about Eurovision for you. Maybe not in the future, we'll see. But what is next for you, for Dami? Dami the musical?
Dami the musical. Well, I was going to release an album this year anyway, regardless of Eurovision or the Corona situation. So I'll just keep working on that. And that song, that was sort of my Eurovision song. I am working on that, and I'll be going into a proper studio at the end of this month to record it. So hopefully I get to release that, and then an album to follow that up with.
That's great. Well, we'll leave it there, and we'll say good luck, and we'll see you when we'll see you.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.